Nola, tell us about Getting On Against the Odds and Many Rivers to Cross, those publications.
Okay, Getting On Against the Odds was one of the publications that looked at how Black and ethnic minority nurses were progressing in the NHS. It came out after the 1999 nursing strategy, Making a Difference. It was an inquiry into how nurses saw themselves progressing. What evidence was there that they were making a difference? Those who were interviewed were candid, clear, and straightforward about their lack of progress over the many years that they'd worked in the NHS. And those who had got on despite the different barriers and the different blocks that they had encountered were able to address some of the issues that helped them to progress. Getting On Against the Odds was a seminal report on those who worked hard, studied hard, but didn't get on as well as they might. Now, Many Rivers to Cross. Now, that was a document that was published around 2003, I believe, but the work went on around 2002. It was to see, again, the progress of Black and minority ethnic nurses in the NHS, taking account of the fact that still there were barriers. The progress wasn't happening fast enough. Yes, we had Mary Seacole scholars, and yes, we were making a different narrative about how we could progress. For example, the Beacon program has started to show how nurses could be developed and moved on. The program at the King's Fund was also part of that development. The Royal Colleges were doing their bit to push forward much of what could be done, but still we had a slow progress.
Yeah, and in a sense, that's where we kind of met under the RC
Yes.
Connect program and the joint work we did around the region.
Absolutely. It was a little at a very slow pace. I remember when Sarah Mullally, who was our chief nurse at the beginning of the 21st century, when I was coming up to retirement from the Department of Health, she suggested to me that she would want a group of BME nurses where she could access advice and be able to talk with those about things that were happening on the ground. That is how the CNO side group was formed.
Originally,
she was astute enough to know she needed to hear it as it happens rather than a sanitized version that might come to her. And so CNO side was started, and again, the work that they have done, Joan Mears and Laura and those, and Yvonne and all of those who took on that mantle after I was retired from the department, has continued to push that agenda, so much so. But the one thing I have to say, that when I left the Department of Health, there were about 20 Black directors of nursing. I don't know how many they are now, but they're certainly in single figures.
Yeah, and I remember at your final presentation for the Royal College of Nursing for the RCN Connect program, and we were talking about leading the change. You predicted by the 2020s we would have a chief nursing officer from a Black and ethnic minority background.
We're still hoping. We're still hoping. We contribute.
We're working towards.
Working, oh my Lord, like equal opportunities, eh? Working towards, never getting there.
Working towards.
Yes.
But But one thing I think was important to interpret in terms of your work at the time was that, especially within the RCN, was the development of communities of practice.
Yes,
and inspiring the nurses to think in the wider context, you know, helping to recruit other young people to become nurses, being much more in the community. And in those days, there was starting to be a broadening of the role of that knowledge transfer into communities. The RCN in the West Midlands was part of the Health and Care Task Force.
Indeed, yes.
Universities to, you know, help galvanize that next generation coming up to actually understand that broader perspective of nursing within the communities that from which they came from.
And to recruit. I remember working with University of Central England, now Birmingham City University, to recruit Asian nurses. That was a drive, and their were successful and changing the thinking that Asian young people could be nurses.
In fact, I've still got the advert from that, become a nurse professional.
Absolutely.
Event in Birmingham, a big event.
Yes, there was a lot of work done to harness that cohort of people who could work with us and reduce the vacancy rate. And to some extent, I think they succeeded. I can't give you figures now about what the vacancy levels are, but it worked at the time.
It certainly did, because I remember at the time, because RCN Connect was based on what's called the Synergy Project, which was it came out of regeneration and what was termed in those days the Training and Enterprise Councils.
That's right.
Responsible for skills.
Yes.
And then when they then became the Learning and Skills Councils.
Yes.
That's then Birmingham in particular, the West Midlands region, and then collaborated as part of that push to get more young people from the diverse communities.
Yes.
Because obviously that's linked to patient care and high quality care and cultural understanding, all those kind of words that have been translated into programs.
Yes. The narrative of the time was, let's get them in and let's train them to go to reach into their communities. There with the language skills and the different approach and the cultural knowledge that is important to communication and understanding. It was a work that was needed. I'm not sure if it's still not needed today.
And in fact, and if we talk about today, in the last few minutes we've got of part one, it's so important. So it's almost that it's time to go back to where we come from, to go forward. Because, and we're going to talk about in the future, collaboration, trust and cooperation. But of course, throughout the pandemic, it was about public confidence.
Public confidence.
Confidence in the system itself.
That's right.
And working the system. And of course, that links to high quality care.
And self-care for the workers.
And absolutely self-care.
Yes.
So that's where we are today. So have we done a complete circle yet?
I think so. I mean, we've come around from the beginning to the middle and what was happening when, and if you did a timeline, I would like to think that we went from the 80s to the 20s. Yes.
So if we were to say and do that measurement of 40 years on.
Yes.
And 2022, as we go into 2023, is a great time to reflect on those 40 years before, because there's knowledge and experience based on what was truly happening from a system perspective.
From a system perspective, recognizing that the NHS is still in a state of needing good skills, needing good staff, recognizing those staff, we're still having to repeat some of what we did 80s onwards, you know.
We certainly do, because we still have to remind everybody about values. So every trust organization has a set of values, as you know. And of course, we talk about the values of respect and inclusion are the common ground for all, regardless of background or status. But that's still something.
It still has to be reminded.
And of course, how people feel, opportunities to lead.
Yes.
This situation, we now talk about EDI now.
Yeah. Yes. But are we listening?
Equality, diversity, and
inclusion. But are we listening? Are we really hearing them? Are we just using the narrative of the day? Yeah. Beware. I like the words, not action, not words concept that is prevailing today. So the action that is coming forward for the future must do more than just sound good, sound bites. It must be more. It must be that when people have experiences, it isn't to their disadvantage.
Absolutely. And so in a sense now, it kind of brings us, as we come to the end, as we think about part 2.
Yes.
And, you know, there is something about the lived experience.
Indeed.
But also we will talk about the servant leadership and what we mean about that now in the, you know, to serve, to lead, you know, and to, you know, has it made individuals grow? Yeah. Has it made them feel that they should at least be able to go back and answer the question, who have I helped today? One of your lines, who have I helped today?
Who have I helped today? How did I help them? Yeah. Yes. What did I give them to think about? Yeah. You know, this generation that is currently leading and developing the services in the NHS will be the generation that people will look back and said, what did you do when you got the baton?
Absolutely. And
yes.
And when you look at what Robert Greenleaf said about servant leadership, exactly in this context, what was the best test and difficult to administer is, do those served grow as persons? Do they, while being served, become healthier, wiser, freer, more autonomous, more likely themselves to become servants? And what is the effect on the least privileged in society? Will they benefit, or at least will they not be further deprived?
Well said.
Question.
Will they? Everybody has a job to do. How do you do yours? What did you leave behind? What is your legacy? Yeah. What did you help? Now, that's the question that everyone must answer, don't you think?
Absolutely. And that's going to be the start of part 2.
Okay.
I look forward to seeing you again very soon.
Thank you so much, Rudy, for the opportunity. We'll talk.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.